It was a cold winter evening in Willow Creek, a small town where life moved slowly and people minded their own business. Laura Bennett walked home from the library, her breath visible in the frosty air. She pulled her coat tighter around herself. As she crossed the bridge that connected the main part of town to her neighborhood, the sound of rushing water beneath her feet usually calmed her, but tonight something felt different. As she approached the other side of the bridge, Laura noticed movement out of the corner of her eye. At first, she thought it might be an animal, or maybe just shadows playing tricks on her. But then she saw him, a boy no older than 12 sitting huddled against the concrete wall under the bridge. He wore a thin jacket that did little to protect him from the biting cold. His hands were wrapped tightly around a tattered backpack, and his face was pale, almost ghostly, in the dim light of the street lamp above. Laura hesitated for a moment. She wasn't sure what to do. Part of her wanted to keep walking, to pretend she hadn't seen anything. After all, she had her own problems to worry about. Life hadn't been easy for her either. Her husband had passed away 5 years ago, leaving her alone in their modest house. She worked long hours at the library, barely making ends meet. Still, something about the boy tugged at her heartstrings. There was a sadness in his eyes that reminded her of herself after losing her husband, lost, scared, and completely alone. Taking a deep breath, Laura stepped off the sidewalk and walked toward him. The boy flinched when he saw her approaching, clutching his backpack even tighter. "Hey there," Laura said softly, trying not to startle him further. "Are you okay?" The boy didn't answer right away. He looked up at her cautiously, his dark eyes scanning her face as if trying to decide whether she could be trusted. Finally, he nodded slightly, but didn't say a word. "My name's Laura," she continued, crouching down so she was closer to his level. "What's your name?" "Ethan," the boy whispered, his voice barely audible over the sound of the wind whistling through the bridge. "Well, Ethan, it's awfully cold out here. Do you have somewhere warm to stay tonight?" Laura asked gently. Ethan shook his head, avoiding her gaze. Tears welled up in his eyes, though he tried hard not to let them fall. Laura's heart broke for him. She couldn't imagine how difficult his life must have been. "Where are your parents?" she asked carefully, not wanting to pry too much. "They're gone," Ethan replied quietly. We came here from another country because of the war. My mom and dad died along the way. I've been moving from place to place ever since." Laura felt a lump form in her throat. She couldn't fathom the pain this child had endured. War, loss, homelessness. He had faced more hardships in his short life than most adults would in a lifetime. Without thinking twice, she reached out and placed a hand on his shoulder. "Listen, Ethan," she said firmly but kindly. "You can't stay out here in this weather. It's freezing and you'll get sick. Why don't you come home with me just for tonight, okay? We'll figure things out tomorrow." For a moment, Ethan seemed unsure. He glanced at his backpack, then back at Laura, as if weighing his options. Finally, he nodded slowly, accepting her offer. Laura helped him to his feet, noticing how light he felt. He was clearly malnourished, his frail frame hidden beneath layers of oversized clothing. The walk back to Laura's house was silent. Ethan trailed behind her, clutching his backpack like a lifeline. When they arrived, Laura ushered him inside and closed the door against the cold. The warmth of the house enveloped them instantly, and Ethan visibly relaxed. "Here, take off your coat and sit by the heater," Laura instructed, pointing to a chair near the fireplace. While Ethan settled in, she went to the kitchen to prepare some hot cocoa and a simple meal of soup and bread. As she worked, she snuck glances at him. He looked so small and vulnerable sitting there in her living room. She couldn't help but feel protective of him. When the food was ready, Laura brought it over to Ethan. He stared at the steaming bowl of soup for a moment before digging in hungrily. Watching him eat made Laura realize just how desperate his situation had been. She waited until he finished before speaking again. "So, Ethan," she began, sitting across from him. "Tell me more about yourself. Where are you from originally?" Ethan swallowed nervously before answering. "I'm from Syria. Our town got destroyed during the fighting. My family fled, but not everyone made it." Laura listened intently, her heart aching for the boy. She didn't press him for details. knowing that reliving such memories must be painful. Instead, she focused on reassuring him that he was safe now. "You know, Ethan," she said after a pause, "you're welcome to stay here for a while, just until we figure out a better plan, okay? You shouldn't have to go through this alone." Ethan looked at her, surprise evident in his expression. No one had offered him such kindness in a very long time. Slowly he nodded, gratitude shining in his eyes. That night, Laura set up a makeshift bed for Ethan on the couch. She gave him a blanket and an extra pillow, ensuring he was comfortable. As she turned off the lights and headed to her bedroom, she couldn't shake the feeling that taking him in was the right thing to do. Little did she know this decision would change both their lives forever. Over the next few days, Laura learned more about Ethan. He was intelligent and curious, despite the hardships he'd faced. He loved reading books, especially those about science and space exploration. Laura encouraged his interests, often bringing home books from the library for him to read. In return, Ethan helped her with chores around the house, eager to contribute in any way he could. Their bond grew stronger. With each passing day, Laura became not just his guardian but also his mentor, teaching him English and helping him adjust to his new surroundings. For the first time in years, Ethan felt like he belonged somewhere. And Laura, who had spent so long mourning the loss of her husband, found a renewed sense of purpose in caring for this remarkable boy. Ethan settled into life with Laura quickly, though it wasn't always easy. Adjusting to a new country, language, and culture was overwhelming at times. But Laura never gave up on him. She enrolled him in the local school, helping him navigate the challenges of being the new kid in class. At first, Ethan struggled. His English wasn't perfect, and he often felt out of place among students who had grown up together. Some kids teased him for his accent or the secondhand clothes he wore, but Ethan didn't let it get to him. He remembered Laura's words, "You're stronger than you think." That thought kept him going. Laura did everything she could to support him. Every evening, after finishing her work at the library, she would sit with Ethan at the kitchen table to help him with his homework. Math came easily to him, but English and history were harder. Together, they practiced vocabulary and read stories aloud. Slowly but surely, Ethan began to improve. His teachers noticed the change too. They saw how determined he was, how eager he was to learn despite the obstacles in his way. One day, during a science lesson, Ethan discovered something that would shape his future: space exploration. The teacher showed the class pictures of stars, planets, and distant galaxies. For the first time, Ethan felt a spark of excitement deep inside him. After class, he asked the teacher if he could borrow one of the astronomy books from the classroom shelf. When he brought it home, Laura was surprised by how absorbed he became. He spent hours flipping through its pages, studying diagrams of rockets and planets. From then on, Ethan's love for science only grew. Laura encouraged his curiosity, even though money was tight. Whenever she visited the library, she brought back books about astronauts, engineers, and the mysteries of the universe. Ethan devoured them all, his mind racing with questions and ideas. He started sketching designs for spaceships in a notebook, imagining what it might be like to travel beyond Earth. Sometimes, late at night, he would sneak outside and stare up at the stars, dreaming of the day he might see them up close. Laura admired Ethan's passion. Though she didn't fully understand the technical details of his drawings, she loved seeing the excitement in his eyes. One weekend, she surprised him with a trip to the local planetarium. It wasn't much, just a small dome in the community center, but to Ethan, it was magical. As they sat under the artificial night sky, listening to recordings of astronauts talking about their journeys, Ethan leaned over and whispered, "I want to do this someday. I want to explore space." Laura smiled, squeezing his hand. "If anyone can do it, Ethan, it's you." As the years passed, Ethan continued to excel in school, especially in math and science. His classmates, who once teased him, now looked up to him for his intelligence and determination. Teachers praised him for his hard work, and soon he became known as one of the brightest students in his grade. Still, Ethan never forgot where he came from. He carried the lessons Laura taught him: kindness, perseverance, and gratitude in everything he did. When Ethan turned 16, Laura helped him find a part-time job at the library. It wasn't glamorous work, mostly shelving books and organizing shelves, but Ethan didn't mind. He enjoyed being surrounded by stories and knowledge. Plus, it gave him a chance to save money for college. Laura insisted he keep most of his earnings, though he always set aside a little to buy groceries or pitch in around the house. Their bond had grown so strong that Ethan considered Laura not just his guardian, but also his family. One summer evening, as they sat together on the porch watching the sunset, Ethan turned to Laura and said, "I don't know how to thank you for everything you've done for me." Laura chuckled softly. "You don't need to thank me, Ethan. Seeing you grow into such an amazing person is all the thanks I need." But Ethan shook his head. "No, really. You saved me when no one else cared. I'll never forget that. And when I'm older, I promise I'll make you proud." Laura reached over and patted his hand. "You already have, Ethan. More than you'll ever know." By the time Ethan graduated from high school, he had earned a scholarship to study aerospace engineering at a prestigious university. It was a dream come true. Not just for Ethan, but for Laura too. She had watched him transform from a scared, homeless boy into a confident young man with big dreams. On the day of his graduation, Laura cried tears of joy as she pinned a corsage onto his lapel. "You look so handsome," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. Ethan grinned, hugging her tightly. "None of this would have been possible without you." The months leading up to Ethan's departure were bittersweet. Laura helped him pack his belongings, making sure he had everything he needed for college. She sewed patches onto his backpack and wrote encouraging notes to slip into his suitcase. On the morning he left, she handed him a small pendant engraved with the words, "Never forget where you came from." "This is for you," she said, fastening it around his neck. "So you'll always remember your roots and how far you've come." Ethan blinked back tears as he hugged her one last time. "I won't forget, Laura. I promise." As Ethan boarded the bus to the university, Laura stood waving until it disappeared from sight. Her heart ached, but she knew this was just the beginning of his journey. Over the next few years, they stayed in touch through letters and phone calls. Ethan shared stories about his classes, professors, and projects, while Laura updated him on life in Willow Creek. During holidays, he returned home bringing gifts and tales of his adventures. Through it all, Laura remained his anchor, the person who believed in him when no one else did. And Ethan, in turn, made her proud every single day. Little did either of them know their story was far from over. Somewhere in the vast expanse of the universe, destiny was waiting to bring them together again in ways neither could have imagined. Years passed quickly, and before Laura knew it, Ethan had grown into a successful engineer. He worked tirelessly on groundbreaking projects that pushed the boundaries of human knowledge. His name began appearing in scientific journals and news, articles about advancements in space exploration. Despite his achievements, Ethan never forgot the lessons Laura had taught him: humility, kindness, and perseverance. Whenever he faced challenges or doubted himself, he thought back to those nights under the stars in Willow Creek, dreaming of a better future. Laura followed Ethan's career closely, clipping newspaper articles and saving emails he sent her detailing his progress. She was proud of everything he accomplished, but she missed having him around. Their conversations over the phone were frequent, but they weren't the same as sitting together on the porch or sharing a meal at the kitchen table. Still, Laura understood that Ethan's dreams were bigger than their small town, and she supported him wholeheartedly. One crisp autumn morning, Laura received a letter in the mail. It wasn't typed like most of Ethan's updates. This one was handwritten, which immediately caught her attention. She sat down at the kitchen table, sipping her coffee as she opened the envelope. Inside, Ethan wrote, "Dear Laura, I hope this letter finds her well. I've been working on something incredible lately, a project that could change the world. I can't say too much just yet, but I promise you'll be the first to know all about it. There's something else I need to tell you. I'm coming home soon. Not for a visit, but to show you something extraordinary. Please don't ask questions. Until I arrive, just trust me. See you soon, Ethan." Laura read the letter twice, her heart racing with curiosity. What could Ethan possibly be working on? And what did he mean by something extraordinary? She spent the next few days speculating, imagining everything from a new invention to a surprise party. Whatever it was, she knew it had to be important if Ethan was coming all the way back to Willow Creek. A week later, Ethan arrived unexpectedly at Laura's doorstep. He looked different now, older, more confident, but his warm smile was still the same. Laura hugged him tightly, tears pricking her eyes. "It's so good to see you," she said, pulling back to look at him. "You're looking well." "You, too, Laura," Ethan replied, stepping inside. "Thanks for letting me drop by without much notice." "Nonsense, you're always welcome here." Laura gestured toward the kitchen table. "Now sit down and tell me what's going on. Your letter had me worried and curious." Ethan laughed softly, taking a seat. "I wanted to wait until tomorrow to explain everything properly. But I will say this. You won't believe what I've been working on. It's life-changing." Laura raised an eyebrow. "Life-changing? That sounds dramatic." "It is," Ethan said, his tone serious now. "But I promise you'll understand when you see it. Tomorrow morning I'll show you. For now, let's catch up. How have things been here?" They spent the rest of the afternoon talking about Laura's life in Willow Creek and Ethan's adventures abroad. He told her about collaborating with international teams, attending conferences in faraway cities, and testing prototypes in remote locations. Laura listened intently, marveling at how far he'd come since the days when he struggled to learn English. The next morning, Ethan woke up early and prepared for the big reveal. He asked Laura to dress warmly and meet him outside. When she stepped out onto the porch, she found him waiting by his car. "Ready?" he asked, smiling mysteriously. "Ready for what?" Laura teased, climbing into the passenger seat. "You're being awfully secretive." "All will be revealed soon," Ethan replied, starting the engine. They drove to a secluded field on the outskirts of town, where Ethan parked near a tarp-covered object. Laura frowned, unsure what to expect. As Ethan pulled back the tarp, her jaw dropped. Beneath it stood a sleek, futuristic spacecraft unlike anything she'd ever seen. Its metallic surface gleamed in the morning sunlight, and faint blue lights pulsed along its edges. "What is this?" Laura stammered, staring at the ship in disbelief. "This," Ethan said proudly, "is the culmination of 15 years of work. It's a prototype capable of faster-than-light travel. With this technology, humans can explore distant galaxies and find new homes among the stars." Laura blinked, struggling to process what he was saying. "Faster-than-light travel? Are you serious?" "Completely serious," Ethan confirmed. "This isn't science fiction anymore, it's reality. And you, Laura, are looking at the person who helped make it possible." Laura shook her head, overwhelmed. "How did you manage this? This must have cost a fortune." "It wasn't easy," Ethan admitted. "There were setbacks, failures, sleepless nights, but every step of the way I remembered your kindness. You gave me a second chance when no one else would. This ship represents hope. For humanity. For people like me who've lost everything. And for anyone brave enough to dream big." Tears filled Laura's eyes as she looked at Ethan. "I don't know what to say. This is unbelievable." "There's more," Ethan added gently. "I want you to be the first passenger on its maiden voyage." Laura gasped. "Me?" "Absolutely. Not, space travel is dangerous, Ethan. I couldn't possibly." "You can," Ethan interrupted firmly. "And you will. Think about it, Laura. You've spent your entire life helping others, giving them opportunities they wouldn't have had otherwise. Now it's your turn to experience something amazing. Trust me, I wouldn't ask if I didn't believe we'd both make it back safely." Laura hesitated, torn between fear and excitement. The idea of leaving Earth terrified her, but the thought of seeing the universe through Ethan's eyes filled her with wonder. Finally, she nodded. "All right. If you're sure about this, then I'll do it. But only because it means so much to you." Ethan grinned, hugging her tightly. "Thank you, Laura. You won't regret it." Over the next hour, Ethan explained how the ship worked, showing Laura its controls and safety features. Though much of it went over her head, she trusted him completely. By the time they climbed aboard, the sun was rising higher in the sky, casting golden light across the field. As the engines hummed to life, Laura gripped the edge of her seat, her heart pounding. "Are you ready?" Ethan asked, glancing at her. "As ready as I'll ever be," Laura replied, managing a shaky smile. With a final check of the systems, Ethan initiated liftoff. The ship rose smoothly into the air, leaving the ground and Willow Creek far behind. Through the window, Laura watched as Earth shrank into a blue-green orb suspended in the vastness of space. Tears streamed down her face, not from fear, but from awe. "I can't believe this is real," she whispered, turning to Ethan. "You've done something truly incredible." Ethan smiled, his eyes shining with pride. "We did this together, Laura. None of this would have been possible without you." For the first time in her life, Laura felt weightless, not just physically but emotionally. All the struggles, sacrifices, and moments of doubt faded away, replaced by pure gratitude. She realized that taking in a homeless refugee boy, all those years ago, hadn't just changed his life, it had changed hers too. As the spacecraft soared higher and higher, Laura felt her stomach lurch with excitement and a little fear. She had never imagined leaving Earth, let alone traveling beyond its atmosphere. But here she was, sitting next to Ethan, who seemed completely calm and focused as he guided the ship deeper into space. Through the large window, Earth grew smaller and smaller until it became a shimmering sphere suspended in an endless sea of stars. "Look at that," Ethan said softly, pointing toward the window. "Isn't it beautiful?" Laura nodded, unable to speak for a moment. Tears welled up in her eyes as she stared at the glowing blue and green orb that was her home. From this distance, Earth looked so peaceful, so perfect. All the worries, struggles, and conflicts that plagued humanity seemed insignificant compared to the vastness of the universe surrounding them. "It's incredible," Laura finally managed to say, her voice trembling. "I've seen pictures of Earth from space before, but nothing compares to seeing it with my own eyes." Ethan smiled, glancing at her. "I knew you'd like it. This is why I wanted you to come with me, to share this moment. You've given me so much, Laura. It feels right that you should be here for something this important." Laura wiped her tears and turned to him. "Thank you, Ethan, for everything. I still can't believe you built this ship. It's like something out of a dream." "It wasn't easy," Ethan admitted, leaning back in his seat. "There were times when I thought we'd never get it to work, but every time I doubted myself, I remembered how you believed in me when no one else did. That kept me going." Laura shook her head, smiling. "You don't need to thank me, Ethan. Watching you succeed has been reward enough. Seeing what you've accomplished, it makes me realize how lucky I was to meet you under that bridge all those years ago." Ethan chuckled softly. "Funny, isn't it? If you hadn't stopped that night, none of this would have happened. Sometimes I wonder if fate brought us together." "Maybe it did," Laura said thoughtfully. "But whatever the reason, I'm grateful. You've become family to me, Ethan. And now, looking at this ship, I see just how far you've come. You've changed not only your life, but mine too." For a while they sat in silence, gazing out at the stars. The spacecraft drifted gently through space, carried by its advanced engines. Laura marveled at how smooth the ride was. There was no shaking or noise, just a quiet hum that filled the cabin. She glanced around at the controls and screens, trying to understand how such a small ship could achieve something so extraordinary. "How does it work?" she asked after a while. "The faster-than-light part, I mean." Ethan leaned forward, eager to explain. "It's based on bending space-time," he began, using simple terms so she could follow along. "Instead of moving through space like a car on a road, we create a sort of shortcut, a tunnel, that lets us jump across huge distances instantly. It's like folding a piece of paper and poking a hole through it to connect 2 points." Laura frowned, trying to picture it. "So, instead of driving miles and miles, you just punch a hole and step through?" "Exactly." Ethan grinned. "Of course, creating that hole takes a lot of energy and precision. That's where the technology comes in. We use special fuel and magnetic fields to stabilize the process. It's complicated, but once you break it down, It's really about making the impossible possible. Laura nodded slowly, though she didn't fully grasp the science behind it. What mattered most to her was the result, the ability to explore places humans had only dreamed of visiting. She looked out at the stars again, imagining what it might be like to visit one of those distant suns. "Have you tested this before?" she asked, suddenly feeling nervous. "I mean, have you flown this ship yourself?" "Yes, many times," Ethan reassured her. "We've done countless simulations and test flights within our solar system. Everything works perfectly. Don't worry, Laura. You're safe with me." His confidence helped ease her fears, but she couldn't help thinking about the risks involved. Space was unpredictable, full of dangers no one could anticipate. Still, she trusted Ethan completely. If anyone could conquer the challenges of space travel, it was him. After a few hours, Ethan announced they were approaching their destination, a nearby star system with a planet that scientists believed might support life. "This will be our first stop," he explained. "From here, we can gather data and send it back to Earth. It'll help us plan future missions." Laura's heart raced with anticipation. "Are we actually going to land on that planet?" Ethan shook his head. "Not yet. For now, we'll orbit it and scan the surface. Landing requires even more preparation, and I want to make sure everything goes smoothly. But someday we'll set foot on planets like this one." As they neared the planet, Laura peered out the window, holding her breath. The planet appeared gradually, a swirling mass of colors, deep blues, greens, and purpures, with wisps of clouds drifting across its surface. It looked almost magical, like a painting come to life. "It's stunning," Laura whispered, awestruck. "Is it really possible for life to exist there?" "We won't know for sure until we study it more closely," Ethan replied. "But the conditions look promising. There's water, oxygen, and the right temperature range. If we find signs of life, it could change everything we know about the universe." They spent the next hour circling the planet, collecting data and taking photos. Laura watched in fascination as Ethan worked the controls, his face lit up with excitement. He pointed out features on the planet's surface, mountain ranges, oceans, and patches of vegetation-like formations. Each discovery filled him with renewed energy. "You're amazing, Ethan," Laura said after a while. "To think that you've created something that allows us to do this, to explore worlds beyond our own, it's mind-blowing." Ethan paused, looking at her with a mix of pride and gratitude. "I couldn't have done it without you, Laura. You gave me a chance when I had nothing. You taught me to dream big and never give up. This ship, it's not just mine. It's ours." Laura smiled, touched by his words. "Well, I may not understand all the technical details, but I know one thing for sure. You're going to change the world with this. People will look to the stars differently because of you." As they prepared to leave the planet's orbit and head back toward Earth, Laura reflected on everything she had experienced. The journey had been overwhelming at times, but also deeply fulfilling. She realized that taking in a homeless refugee boy all those years ago hadn't just changed Ethan's life. It had opened doors she never imagined existed. Together, they had achieved something truly remarkable. When they finally returned to Willow Creek, Laura stepped out of the spacecraft feeling like a different person. She had seen the universe, traveled among the stars, and witnessed the limitless potential of human ingenuity. And through it all, she had shared the experience with someone she loved like family. Ethan walked her to the porch, where they stood for a moment, looking up at the night sky. "So, what's next?" Laura asked, curious about his plans. "There's still so much to do," Ethan replied, his eyes shining with determination. "This is just the beginning. With this technology, we can explore farther, learn more, and maybe even find new homes for humanity. But no matter where I go or what I accomplish, I'll always remember where I came from and who helped me get here." Laura placed a hand on his shoulder, smiling warmly. "And I'll always be proud of you, Ethan. No matter what happens, you'll always have a home with me." In that moment, surrounded by the quiet beauty of Willow Creek and the infinite possibilities of the cosmos above, Laura knew their story was far from over. After returning from their incredible journey into space, Ethan threw himself into sharing his discovery with the world. He knew that the faster-than-light spacecraft wasn't just a personal achievement. It was a gift to humanity. With this technology, people could explore new worlds, find solutions to Earth's problems, and ensure the survival of future generations. But before he could make that dream a reality, he needed to gain the trust and support of governments, scientists, and ordinary citizens. Laura encouraged him every step of the way, reminding him of the importance of patience and humility. Ethan decided to hold a press conference in a nearby city to unveil his invention to the public. He invited leading scientists, government officials, and members of the media, knowing that transparency would be key to gaining their approval. The night before the event, Laura helped him prepare. They rehearsed his speech, reviewed slideshows, and double-checked the small-scale model of the spacecraft he planned to present on stage. "Are you nervous?" Laura asked as they sat together in the living room, going over notes one last time. "A little," Ethan admitted, rubbing his temples. "This is such a big moment, not just for me, but for everyone. If I mess it up—" "You won't mess it up," Laura interrupted firmly, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You've worked too hard for this. Just speak from your heart and they'll listen." Ethan smiled, grateful for her unwavering support. "Thanks, Laura. I don't know what I'd do without you." The next morning, Ethan and Laura arrived at the conference hall early. The building buzzed with anticipation as attendees filed in, eager to hear about the groundbreaking announcement. Reporters set up cameras and microphones while scientists flipped through programs detailing the day's agenda. When it was finally time to begin, Ethan walked onto the stage, clutching the model of the spacecraft tightly in his hands. "Good morning, everyone," he began, his voice steady despite the crowd staring back at him. "Thank you all for being here today. What I'm about to share with you isn't just my story. It belongs to all of us. It represents hope, curiosity, and the boundless potential of human ingenuity." He paused, letting his words sink in before continuing. "For centuries, we've looked to the stars and wondered, are we alone? Can we reach them? Today, I'm proud to tell you that the answer is yes. This," he held up the model, "is the prototype of a spacecraft capable of faster-than-light travel. With this technology, we can explore galaxies far beyond our own, find new resources, and perhaps even discover other forms of life." Gasps rippled through the audience as Ethan explained how the ship worked, using simple language so everyone could understand. He showed videos of test flights, shared data collected during their recent mission, and highlighted the potential applications of the technology. Behind him, the large screen displayed breathtaking images of distant planets, swirling nebulae, and glowing stars. Throughout the presentation, Laura sat in the front row, watching Ethan with tears in her eyes. She remembered the boy who had once huddled under a bridge, shivering and afraid. Now, he stood tall and confident, inspiring thousands of people with his vision for the future. When the presentation ended, the room erupted into applause. Scientists approached Ethan to ask questions. Reporters scrambled to interview him, and strangers shook his hand, thanking him for his work. Later that evening, after the crowds had dispersed, Ethan and Laura returned home. They sat together on the porch, reflecting on the day's events. "How are you feeling?" Laura asked, handing him a cup of tea. "Exhausted, but happy," Ethan replied with a grin. "Did you see their faces when I showed them the footage of the planet? Some of them were practically speechless." Laura laughed softly. "You earned every bit of that reaction, Ethan. You've given people something to believe in, a reason to look forward to the future." "It's not just me," Ethan said, shaking his head. "None of this would have been possible without you. Your kindness gave me a second chance. Your belief in me kept me going when things got tough. And now, because of you, I get to help others." Laura reached over and squeezed his hand. "You're doing exactly what I hoped you'd do, making the world a better place. That's all I ever wanted for you." Over the following weeks, Ethan became a household name. News outlets covered his story extensively, praising him as a visionary who had unlocked the secrets of the universe. Schools invited him to give talks to students, encouraging them to pursue careers in science and engineering. Governments reached out to collaborate on building more ships like his prototype. People from all walks of life wrote letters expressing their gratitude, sharing stories of how his achievements had inspired them. But fame didn't change Ethan. Despite the attention, he remained grounded, always remembering where he came from. Whenever he traveled for meetings or conferences, he made sure to bring Laura along. "I want people to know who made this possible," he told her. "You deserve to be recognized too." One day, while visiting a school in a neighboring town, Ethan met a group of children who reminded him of himself at their age. Many of them came from difficult backgrounds, struggling to find hope in their circumstances. Seeing their wide-eyed curiosity reignited his passion for making space exploration accessible to everyone, regardless of their background. After the presentation, a shy girl approached him, clutching a notebook filled with sketches of rockets and spaceships. "Do you think someone like me could ever build something like that?" she asked hesitantly. Ethan knelt down to meet her eye level, smiling warmly. "Absolutely. Anyone can achieve great things if they're willing to work hard and never give up. Look at me. I started with nothing. All it takes is a dream and the courage to chase it." The girl beamed, clutching her notebook tighter. Watching the exchange, Laura felt a lump form in her throat. She realized that Ethan wasn't just changing the course of human history. He was giving others the same opportunity he'd been given, a chance to dream bigger than they thought possible. As months turned into years, Ethan continued to push the boundaries of space exploration. More ships were built, crewed by teams of astronauts eager to venture into the unknown. Laura stayed involved, helping him manage logistics and offering advice whenever he needed it. Together they formed a partnership rooted in trust, love, and mutual respect. One evening, as they strolled through Willow Creek under a starry sky, Ethan stopped suddenly and turned to Laura. "Do you remember the night we first went into space? Together?" "Of course I do," Laura replied, smiling at the memory. "It changed my life." "Well," Ethan said, his tone serious now, "there's something else I want to show you. Something even bigger than the ship." Laura raised an eyebrow, intrigued. What could possibly be bigger than that? Ethan grinned mischievously. "You'll see soon enough. Just trust me." Though curious, Laura didn't press him for details. She knew better than anyone that Ethan's ideas were worth waiting for. Whatever he had planned next, she was certain it would leave the world, and her, in awe. Ethan's promise to show Laura something even bigger than the faster-than-light spacecraft lingered in her mind for days. She tried not to dwell on it too much, knowing that Ethan always had surprises up his sleeve. Still, curiosity got the better of her. What could possibly top traveling to another star system? Whatever it was, she trusted Ethan completely. One crisp morning, Ethan arrived at Laura's house with a familiar twinkle in his eye. "Are you ready?" he asked, holding up a small suitcase. "For what?" Laura replied, raising an eyebrow. "You'll see," Ethan said mysteriously, leading her to his car. They drove to the same secluded field where Ethan had revealed the prototype spacecraft years earlier, but this time, instead of a single ship, there were several parked in neat rows. Engineers and technicians bustled around, preparing for what looked like a massive operation. Laura frowned, unsure what to expect. "Ethan, what's going on?" she asked as they approached the largest spacecraft in the lineup. "This," Ethan said, gesturing toward the ship, "is just the beginning. We're not just exploring space anymore. We're building homes there." Laura blinked, confused. "Homes, you mean colonies?" "Exactly," Ethan explained, his excitement growing. "We've found a planet in a nearby star system that's perfect for human habitation. It has water, oxygen, fertile soil, everything we need to start fresh. And now, thanks to the technology we've developed, we can transport people there, safely and efficiently." Laura stared at him, stunned. "You're serious? You're talking about moving entire communities into space?" "Yes," Ethan nodded. "It's not just about exploration anymore. Earth is facing challenges: climate change, overpopulation, resource shortages. This is our chance to ensure humanity's survival. We can create a new home among the stars. Laura shook her head, still processing the enormity of what he was saying. But how do you plan to make this happen? Moving people to another planet sounds impossible. It's challenging, but not impossible, Ethan assured her. We've already built a space station near the planet to serve as a base of operations. Scientists are testing the environment, setting up infrastructure, and making sure everything is safe for settlers. Once we're ready, we'll begin transporting volunteers. Laura took a deep breath, feeling overwhelmed but also inspired. This is incredible, Ethan. Truly groundbreaking. But why are you telling me all this now? Ethan smiled warmly, taking her hands in his. Because I want you to be part of it. Not just as my guardian or mentor, but as a pioneer. You've given so much to others, Laura. Now it's your turn to experience something extraordinary. Come with me. See the planet for yourself. Tears welled up in Laura's eyes. I don't know what to say. Space travel is one thing, but living on another planet? That's a big step. I understand if you're hesitant, Ethan said, gently. But think about it. You've spent your life helping others find hope and opportunity. Imagine being part of creating a whole new world, a place where everyone has a second chance. Laura hesitated, torn between fear and excitement. She thought about all the lives Ethan had touched through his work, including hers. If anyone deserved to witness the culmination of his efforts, it was her. Finally, she nodded. All right, Ethan, let's do it. The journey to the distant star system was unlike anything Laura had experienced before. This time, the spacecraft was larger, designed to carry passengers and supplies for colonization. As they traveled through the vastness of space, Laura marveled at the ingenuity of the design. Screens displayed real-time updates on their progress, while engineers worked tirelessly to ensure a smooth arrival. When they finally reached the planet, Laura felt her breath catch in her throat. Through the window, she saw a world unlike any she'd ever imagined. Rolling hills stretched as far as the eye could see, dotted with vibrant vegetation in shades of green and gold. Rivers sparkled under the light of two suns, casting long shadows across the landscape. It was breathtakingly beautiful. We call it New Dawn, Ethan said softly, gazing out at the scene. A fresh start for humanity. Laura turned to him, her heart swelling with pride. You've done it, Ethan. You've created a miracle. It wasn't just me, Ethan reminded her. It was all of us working together. People from every corner of the globe contributed to this project, and none of it would have been possible without you. As they stepped onto the surface of New Dawn, Laura felt a profound sense of wonder. The air smelled clean and sweet, and the ground beneath her feet felt solid and welcoming. Around them, teams of scientists and engineers worked to establish the first settlement, constructing domes and planting crops. It was hard work, but everyone seemed energized by the possibilities ahead. Over the next few weeks, Laura immersed herself in the project, learning about the challenges and triumphs of building a new home among the stars. She helped wherever she could, lending her organizational skills to coordinate logistics and support the team. Watching Ethan lead the effort filled her with admiration. He wasn't just a scientist or engineer, he was a visionary, inspiring others to dream bigger than they ever thought possible. One evening, as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery hues of orange and pink, Laura and Ethan sat together outside the main dome. The temperature was mild and a gentle breeze carried the scent of alien flowers. What happens next? Laura asked, breaking the comfortable silence. Next, Ethan replied, leaning back on his elbows. We keep going. More ships will arrive, bringing settlers and supplies. Over time, this place will grow into a thriving community, a beacon of hope for humanity. And you'll stay here? Laura asked, glancing at him. For now, Ethan nodded. There's still so much to do, but someday when things are stable, I might explore farther. There's a whole universe out there waiting for us. Laura smiled, looking up at the unfamiliar constellations twinkling above. You've given people a gift, Ethan. A chance to start over, to dream again. And you've given me everything, Ethan said, squeezing her hand. Without you, none of this would exist. You saved me, Laura. You believed in me when no one else did. That's why I wanted you to be here, to see the impact of your kindness. Tears filled Laura's eyes as she looked at him. I didn't do much, Ethan. Just opened my door. You did more than you realize, Ethan said, firmly. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness have the biggest ripple effects. Because of you, I'm standing here today. Because of you, we're standing on a new world. In that moment, Laura understood the true meaning of their journey together. Taking in a homeless refugee boy hadn't just changed Ethan's life, it had sparked a chain reaction that led to humanity's greatest achievement. Together, they had proven that love, compassion, and determination could overcome even the greatest challenges. As they gazed out at the glowing horizon, Laura felt a deep sense of peace. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but she knew they were ready to face it, together. In the vastness of the universe, surrounded by infinite possibilities, they had found their place. And for the first time in her life, Laura truly believed that anything was possible.